Hey everyone, today we're taking a look at the Panasonic Lumix 25mm f1.4 Leica Mark I lens. This is a micro 4/3 lens, and there's actually a Mark II that's come out, but today we're taking a look at the Mark I. Now this is a 25mm lens, but because it's designed for crop sensor cameras like this Panasonic GH5, it has a full frame equivalent zoom distance of 50mm. So it basically feels like a 50mm. I'm currently filming on this lens, and I purchased it for $700 Australian here at a local camera retailer, although I looked online now and I found it for about $900, so it looks like I got it at a bit of a discount. Today I'm taking a look at this lens from a video creation / content creation kind of perspective. There's a lot of videos online that go into the photography qualities of this lens, including zooming in photos taken by this lens to ultra zoomed in and seeing what kind of colors they're producing and how sharp it is. I'm not going to be looking at any of that. Instead, I'm going to be focusing on how this performs in videos and how this will work for people like me who are also creating videos, and whether this lens will help them in their workflow. So let's take a look. In terms of physical characteristics, this lens is very small and light. In fact, it's the smallest lens that I own, and it doesn't really feel like it's worth nearly $1,000. In terms of materials, it's made out of mostly plastic, and this contributes to it being not dustproof or splashproof or waterproof. And there actually is a Mark II version of this same lens, which is all of those things. So if you're looking to go in any kind of extreme environments, definitely have a look at that lens. However, we're talking about this Mark I today, and so it is quite plasticky, like I just said. It doesn't really have many metal elements to it, although you can tell the glass within it is quite of high quality. In terms of features of the lens, it did come with a lens hood, a detachable lens hood, which you can attach to the front. However, it can't be reversed and put around to save space when you're storing your lens, unlike most lens hoods that I have in my range. The only physical control on the lens is a focusing ring, which is a focusing by wire system, which means it passes a focusing command when you spin it back to the camera, and then the camera determines if it should actually focus the lens, or if you're in a mode like autofocus, it doesn't do anything at all. So really, it's just an extra control for you to use for your camera. The minimum focusing distance is 30 centimeters, which is plenty given how far away you're actually going to have to position your subject in order to get it all in frame, given how tight the lens is. So this 25mm lens has the best image quality of any of the 4 lenses that I own for my Panasonic GH5. It's really fast at f1.4, which enables you to go into slightly darker situations than you otherwise would be, because you can let in more light with that wider aperture. So I mainly use this lens for things like this, piece to cameras, as well as getting right up close and getting details of specific products and having that separation with the background. In fact, this depth of field is the main reason why I got this lens, as I really wanted to get that really cinematic, professional look where you just focus in on the subject and everything else in the background is blurred out. I think that's really the difference between having a professional video and having kind of an average or mediocre video. While you probably get away with filming videos on your iPhone, and indeed if you're starting YouTube or just getting started with content creation online, definitely just use your phone. But I think what mainly separates these videos that I'm creating now from what I created 5 years ago or even a couple of years ago is how I'm able to kind of get that separation that looks a lot more cinematic and a lot more professional than having everything in focus. Because I'm able to focus in on just the one subject, so in this shot it would just be me, but it could be like a phone or a tablet or a computer or something. Because I'm able to focus in on that particular subject, the audience is drawn to that particular thing that I'm trying to highlight. And they're not going to get distracted with what's in the background, as you can clearly tell that that's just a secondary part of it. When you're filming with something like your iPhone or a cheaper lens, everything becomes kind of in focus and quite sharp, and you don't get that shallow depth of field and that look that I'm really after that gives it that cinematic, professional feel. So I'm a huge fan of that depth of field effect, and I really like being able to use that, and it adds a whole nother kind of dimension and element to videos that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to get without this lens. But with that said, there are still a few downsides with this lens, and you're gonna know about them before you buy it. It's not like I've discovered this after having purchased the lens. But the first one is just how tight the image is. So this is basically a 50mm equivalent on a full frame camera, and I'm literally sitting about 1.5 meters away from the camera now, even though based on looking at the shot, it looks like I'm quite close to the lens. This is in contrast to a wide angle lens, for example, and one of which I did a review, which you can watch just up here. And that one you can be really close and it still feels like you're far away. This one, on the other hand, because it's the 50mm, you've really got to push your subject quite a way back from the camera in order to fit it all in frame. Especially if you've got someone like a person talking where you want to capture their arms, you do need to push it quite a way away, and you can't like just zoom out with the lens because it's a fixed focal length. And interestingly, even though I knew it was a 50mm lens before I bought the lens, I was still surprised with how far away you actually need to push the camera away from the subject in order to get that separation that you're after. You're going to get the best results with a big separation between the camera and the subject, and also the subject and the background, as that will give you more and more of that blurry kind of effect that you're looking for. So the main thing to keep in mind is just how much depth you'll need to take your videos. At the moment, I've got the camera actually sitting outside of this room through the doorway, and then I'm about halfway in the room, and then I've got a whole bunch of background behind me to give me that nice background effect. If you do want to buy this lens and use it for things like this, you do need to have a lot of depth, otherwise you're not going to be able to take full advantage of what it has to offer. The other slight, annoyance with this lens is if you put it on the widest aperture, that f1.4, you're not going to be able to get much in focus at all. The part that it's actually going to be able to get in focus is a very small amount, and you'll find that if you move forward or if you move back, as you'll see kind of here, I become out of focus super quickly because it's just targeted on that one spot. You'll get that spot in focus and everywhere else won't be in focus. That helps for getting this blurry background effect and not having anything in the background in focus, but it does make it a bit frustrating when you film a whole video for 10 minutes and then you find you've moved like 5 centimeters forward or 5 centimeters back and your whole shot's unusable because you're out of focus the whole time. So if you're using this lens, especially in professional situations where you can't necessarily redo the shot like you can easily with online content creation, just make sure you've really checked your focus or you're actually actively manning it the whole time. Sometimes you can't even tell on the small LCDs on the on your camera whether it's in focus or not. So make sure you're zooming in to check the focus properly, or use a larger external monitor. Despite some of the challenges in terms of how much depth you need and how kind of tricky it is to get in focus, once you work it out and get it right, the results are absolutely phenomenal. And you might be able to tell even in this shot, I'm just so happy with how this has turned out and how this shot looks compared to when I was using the kit lenses from Panasonic, and they just didn't give me that kind of professional look that I was really looking for, that this lens really gives me. I think if you're looking for a similar effect but you don't necessarily have all the room, you could still go for something like the Panasonic 12mm lens that they sell, which will give you a similar effect to this, as it's got a really wide aperture as well, but doesn't necessarily require you to move so far back. Although this kind of lens will give you a better result and kind of a more blurry background, and you'll get more depth in your shots. But as I keep saying, I really like this lens, and I've basically been using it wherever I can as much as possible. Even though it is quite pricey at the $700 or even $900 if you go to buy it now, it's definitely a worthwhile investment if you're filming online content or you're doing anything where you need to do either close-ups of people like I am now, or close-ups of products or anything like that. This is a really worthwhile investment and something that you'll definitely use a lot. If you're going out spending $2,000 or $3,000 on your camera body so you can get 4K and slow motion and things like that, you may as well also spend a little bit of money on your lens as well, and this is a perfect step up from the kit lenses that come with your camera. So thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give this one a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you've got a lens like this or you want to see me do anything more with this 25mm lens, and I'll be sure to answer your questions or create a follow-up video. Other than that, thanks for watching.